Last week, we talked about the first four topics on spiritual self care, and today I'm going to continue with the remaining four topics on spiritual self care. When we talk about self care, most of us look at physical self care, mental self care, which has come in under a lot of attention, especially during the last 2 years, the need to take care of our mental well being. Today and last week, what I wanted to highlight is that spiritual self care is possibly the biggest contributor to our mental well being. When our mind and body are aligned with our spirit, then that happiness, that sense of well being becomes much more effortless and almost automatic. So we don't even have to take extra effort to ensure that we are happy because we are aligned with our spirit. So spiritual self care becomes a very, very important part of self care. So let's look at what are the topics that we covered last week and the four new topics for this week as well. So, this is the spiritual self care, the map of self care, and we are looking at the spiritual aspect of it. And as in any other of the pizza slices, like I like to call it, this is also based on self love and acceptance and self awareness. When awareness happens without acceptance and self love, then that awareness can be very uncomfortable. So, ensuring that we start from the space of acceptance, no matter where I am, I'm okay with it. If I'm able to start from that standpoint, then that awareness becomes the starting point of change and instead of the starting point of discomfort. So start with self love and acceptance and move on to self awareness. And then let's look at what are the spiritual needs that we talked about. So we looked at values as something that allow us to live our purpose, and we also looked at being authentic on three different levels: the one others think we are, the one I think I am, and the one I really am. So being authentic on all these levels become allows us to live our life of values. And of all the three levels, ensuring that we are starting from that foundation of the one I really am allows us to be authentic in the other two areas as well. So that's what we looked at last week. Expansion beyond ourselves is to look at the fact that I'm just a small dot in this huge universe or multiverse, and that allowing ourselves to go beyond ourselves allows us to be in touch with the awe and wonder of the universe. And when I come back to my own small existence, I bring back that awe, I bring back that wonder, and that allows me to expand my life. And that expansion allows me to allow a free flow of my own inner bliss, inner happiness as well. So that was point three, expansion beyond ourselves. And the opposite of that, coming from the macrocosm to the microcosm, that opposite is that huge world that is outside us. That huge world is also inside us. So, periodically spending time out within myself, exploring my inner world, allows me to get in touch with the source of my own inner wisdom. So, those were the 4 points that we covered last week. Today, we will start with the remaining four topics, which is decluttering our inner world, enlightenment of a different kind, balance between opposites, and the power of intention. And the remaining four, the last four, we will be talking about it next week. So those were the four: being authentic on three levels, expansion beyond ourselves, and the source of inner wisdom, which is all within us. So let's look at decluttering our inner world. All of us know the importance of decluttering. Decluttering my external world, my home, periodically taking stock and saying, look, I have accumulated much more than I need to. Can I take stock and say, this thing served its purpose, is no longer needed? Can I either give it away or throw it away? And that periodic process of decluttering in my home allows me to live in the same home much more comfortably. But that process of decluttering is not something that I do just with my material possessions. That process of decluttering allows me to have a much more spacious inner world inside me as well. We talked about accessing our inner wisdom. And some of you may be saying, look, I understand the theory of the inner wisdom, but when I try to access my inner wisdom, nothing comes up. Or I'm having a lot of trouble accessing my inner wisdom. And very often that inner wisdom is not accessible because of the clutter in our inner world. And periodically taking time out, it is work, it is hard work. Periodically taking time out to do that inner decluttering allows us to access the inner wisdom much more easily. And the example that I gave in the weekly videos was this: I may have a wonderful red dress that I know exists somewhere. I bought it long time ago, and I have a special event coming up and I want to wear that particular red dress, but I'm not able to find it right now. My cupboard is cluttered. My things are my bed is full of clothes. I'm trying to look anywhere and everywhere, and I'm not able to find that red dress. And I'm sure most of us have experienced this particular problem. What happens when I then decide, okay, it's high time I decluttered my cupboard, decluttered my room, and I start doing that? After a while, I find that red dress very easily. And for a period of time, because my cupboard has been decluttered, I'm able to find my things much more easily. And the same is true of my inner wisdom. My inner wisdom is like that red dress, it is sitting there somewhere inside. But because of all the clutter in my inner world, my mind, my emotions, I'm not able to access it. So, periodically decluttering my inner world will allow me to access that inner wisdom very easily. So, how do we declutter our inner world? And before we do that, to me, I feel of all the topics that we have looked at in terms of self care, this is probably the most important part of self care: decluttering our inner world. Why is that? Because when I throw out the rubbish that is inside me, I am feeling lighter. I am in a much better situation to face all the challenges that life throws at me. So, this is probably the highest form of self care and self love that I can show myself. So, one of the ways that we could declutter our inner world is to reflect on what is happening, and then based on that reflection, I decide I want to retain some part of whatever that is that I'm reflecting on, and the remaining part is something that I'm releasing. And this is the same process that our body follows in digestion as well. When we take food, no matter how nutritious that food is, the body says, this is good, I will use it. Once I have taken that, whatever is good, I'm going to throw away what is not needed by me anymore. And this is a lifelong process, lifelong cycle. Every day that I live, every day that I eat, the body is going to be doing this process. And the same is true in our life as well, in our inner world as well. we need to look at reflection, retention, and release. So, the most important thing then is to create that habit of reflection, even more than an environment of reflection. Of course, the environment is necessary. If I am just going from one thing to the other, from one activity to the other, if I'm just constantly doing that, then that there is no environment for reflection, there's no time for reflection. I'm not in the right frame for doing any kind of serious reflection. So firstly, creating space in my life, creating an environment of reflection is very important. Secondly, when I reflect, do it with a little bit of detachment. Detachment to say, this was wonderful, wonderful experience. What can I hold on to? What can I take with me of this experience? And even though this experience was wonderful, what is it that I can release? And this process, most of us understand, it is easy for us to do that. Well, I take back that. It is not easy for us to release or even think that something about a wonderful experience can be released. But there is something that even in the best of situations and life experiences, maybe I can release something. So I can do that. And similarly, in the worst of our experiences, when we went through the greatest challenge of our life, even in that situation, if I sit down and reflect, maybe there is one or two things that I can take with me and hold on to from that horrible experience, and then I can release the rest of it. So the process then is to use that little bit of detachment to observe ourselves as we have gone through the experience, and then identify, what do I hold on to and what do I release. If I'm able to do this consistently, my inner world is going to get decluttered very quickly. And the suggestion would be to spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes on a regular basis, maybe daily or weekly, setting aside time for this retention process. Need not be a painful process. It need not be a time consuming process. It's just the intention to say, today I'm going to set aside 5 to 10 minutes to declutter my inner world, and start with the first thing that comes to my mind. Oh, that process, that experience. Okay, let me look at it, identify what is the thing I want to hold on to, what is the thing that I need to release. Once I have identified what it is that I need to release, then just setting the intention and saying, okay, I release, I release, I release, and add in any kind of visualization that you want to. Maybe you have a fire that you want to just release all the unwanted things into. Or maybe you write it out on a piece of paper and then tear it up or burn it up. Anything that allows your mind and your emotional body to release it is good. And once you have spent 5 to 10 minutes, I suggest setting a timer so that you don't get lost in that negative experience if there is one. Just set a time limit of 5 to 10 minutes. Do this process, and once the timer rings, quickly bring yourself out of that reflective frame, and then change the environment, move yourself physically, drink a glass of water, and that process of release can be complete. And then you move on to other things in your day. This simple process, though it looks very simple, can be very powerful, because that release process is not something that's happening only in the 5 to 10 minutes. Though we are spending consciously 5 to 10 minutes, what we are doing is we are sending a message to our subconscious mind, it's time to release. And when the subconscious mind gets that message, it's going to act on it. So that is why this process is very powerful. Release old emotions, old experiences or beliefs, and you do this through this process of feel it, express it, and then release it. So that is about decluttering our inner world. 5 to 10 minutes done regularly. Very soon, you're going to have an entirely a spacious inner world that gives you much better access to your own inner wisdom. So that was topic 5. Topic 6 is enlightenment of a different kind. And this is something that's been in my mind for many, many years before I put this series together. It's an idea that came to me because very often people who are on a spiritual path give a lot of importance to enlightenment. And it is there in many religious traditions, many spiritual traditions as well. Enlightenment is something that people want to attain. And this is my take on enlightenment. Enlightenment is often understood as a destination. Oh, I have become enlightened. I have attained samadhi. I have attained moksha. I have attained this particular state. And when that happens, that enlightenment creates a hierarchical situation or a feeling of either superiority or inferiority. And when all these things come in, the ego is the one driving the process of enlightenment. There is no real enlightenment happening. Instead, if you look at enlightenment as a process that everybody is in, this journey of enlightenment, I don't think there's any single person in this world that is not on this journey of enlightenment. We may be aware of it, we may not be aware of it, but all of us are striving to be better. And when we look at it in that way, there is no comparison with somebody else that I have attained, they have not, or they have attained, I have not. No, I'm following my journey, and this is where I have to go. I have to become lighter and lighter and lighter. And that's my journey of enlightenment. It's a process, it's not a destination. So, when we look at it this way, what does enlightenment mean? You are destined for enlightenment. Cooperate with your destiny. Don't go against it. Don't thwart it. Allow it to fulfill itself. So beautifully said. I love this. So, this is the process that I'm suggesting is to look at the word enlightenment. What is the key word of that word enlightenment is light. So the process of enlightenment can be looked at in two different ways, and light has two different meanings. Being light is illumination, where light is illumination. And in this case, the process of enlightenment can be allowing external light to come inside. Allow myself to be motivated by, inspired by things that are in the outer world. That is the process of enlightenment. And I can be inspired by somebody else's words. I can be inspired by the vastness of this universe, whatever it is at that point in time, as long as I don't close the doors of my heart, don't close the doors of my mind. When I close that, then that external light cannot come within. So, allowing that external light to come within, I'm already in that path of enlightenment. The second one is allowing my inner light to come out, sharing my inner light with the outside world. That sharing of my inner light can be with a smile, can be with some words, can be through action, can be any way, any which way that is appropriate for us at this point in time. And both of these are already putting me on this path of enlightenment, and I can follow it as in whatever pace I want to in my life. So, that is the first way in which I can traverse this journey of enlightenment. And the other one, when I say I feel light, what that means is I'm not feeling heavy. That's the other meaning of light. And in this case, reducing my inner baggage allows me to feel lighter. Reducing my inner baggage allows me to walk on this path of enlightenment. And when we look at the previous topic, which was decluttering my inner world, that is nothing but reducing my inner baggage. And when I'm able to do this regularly, consistently, I'm traveling on this route, on this path of enlightenment. This is my journey of enlightenment. It has nothing to do with anybody else. And this is my theory of enlightenment. This is the seventh topic in spiritual self care, balance between opposites. All of us strive for balance, and maintaining that balance is something that we need to nourish our spirit with, because that balance is the one that allows us to be centered, grounded in whichever way. So, how do we practice balance? In this case, there are opposites, and opposites are nothing but polarities, duality of life. What do I do? So, when I'm looking at balance, there are two ways in which I can practice or bring myself to a state of balance. It depends on the polarities, it depends on the opposites. Some kind of opposites are such that we need to experience both ends of the spectrum. This is Albert Einstein. He talks about keeping balance is like riding a bicycle. We have to keep moving. That is very true. The moment we become stagnant, sooner or later, that balance becomes difficult and heavy on us. So let's look at the polarities. When we are looking at the two sets of polarities, it is important for us to, with one set of polarities, it is important for us to navigate both sides, both ends of the spectrum. And examples of these would be when we start a project. So, starting a project is one end of the spectrum. Sooner or later, that project has to end. So, ensuring that I'm able to go between the two ends is important. And this is something, it's not an ongoing thing, right? So, there is a finite end to a project. It can be finite or it can be an end in different ways. So, both of that are equally important. Allowing ourselves to do that, ending the project, creates space in my life to start the next project. So, starting and ending both become important. Similarly, if I am doing an external action, that external action in this case is doing this live, talking to you all, arranging my screen, arranging my microphone, the camera, the light, setting up the time, getting the images ready. All of that is external action. And the other end of the spectrum is internal action, getting myself into the right frame of mind, allowing my own inner inspiration to come through. And in this case, I have not scripted any of these lives. I'm just talking extempore with just some points in my mind. So, how will my words flow through unless I have done that inner preparation? So, external action and internal action, I need to be able to balance both of these in this case. And another example is all of us need to do this, which is allowing ourselves time to rest after action. And now everybody understands this, that yes, if I have worked very hard for a certain period of time, then self-care means taking rest, having good sleep. When we are looking at balance, what that also means is if I've had good sleep, if I've had good rest, then pulling myself up and taking action is also part of that self-care cycle. Staying stuck in that rest mode Yes, sometimes that rest mode, I may need more rest than others, or on that particular day, I may need more rest. That is fine. But if I'm going to be resting all the time for a very long period of time, then it's time I pulled myself up and say, look, I need to complete the balance. Let me take action. So these sets of polarities where they are opposites, balance means giving myself time and allowing myself to experience both ends of the polarity. But not all opposites are like this. So, when we have some polarities where ignore both the extremes, walk on the middle path, as Buddha says, that is balance. So, the example is a good one is a pendulum, right? So, if I am swinging this pendulum and say it is moving from one end of the polarity to the other. If I am attached to a polarity and holding it, then when I release it, it's going to upset my balance. Instead, and it takes a while. So if I'm swinging this and then if I'm taking it, if I am holding it very tight with a lot of attachment, say I love something and I'm holding on to it with a lot of attachment, and ultimately I'm forced to release it, it's going to create a pressure. It will push it on the other end. And it takes a while for the pendulum to come back to the center. Instead, if instead of pulling it one end, if I am just gently moving this way, then that balance becomes easier. When we are looking at this set of polarities, where the two polarities are not, it's not a good idea to experience both ends of the polarities, then find the middle ground, as close to the middle ground as possible. And even if you have to go the two extremes, try instead of going from one long arc from this side to that side, have a smaller one in the center. That way, the balance becomes easier. And the best examples are all the circus acrobats who traverse on that tripwire. So they have this stick with them to help them balance, a pole that helps them balance, and they don't want to tilt the pole too much on one side or too much on the other side. So what they are doing is balancing it just right. So this is ensuring that you are taking the middle path, find the balance between the polarities rather than through the polarities. So that was point number 7. And the last topic for today is the power of intention behind our actions. So when we are looking at our intention, those intentions are coming from within us, and our intentions are very powerful. Why are the intentions very powerful? Because they allow us to go in the right direction. And these intentions, once we are able to identify, examine, and clarify, spend time. What are the intentions? What are my intentions with this? Once I'm able to identify it, examine it, is it the right intention? Is this the intention I want to act on? And spend time clarifying how will it look like in the world around me. Once I have done that homework, then nurturing my intentions by thinking about it, talking about it, that kind of work allows me to, that intention allows me to align my actions to that intention effortlessly. Otherwise, my actions need much more effort from my part. So then we act on that. When it comes to intention, it is like the seed that sprouts with our thoughts, with our attention. And that's why it is important to take action, but take action after we have identified our intention and after we have ensured that we are giving our attention to the intention. The best way that I can think of is, say, for example, there is a person who wants to be a gymnast, and this is their dream. This is their intention. They want to learn more and more and be a world class gymnast. That is the intention. Now, if they have this intention, but they're not putting any attention on that, then that intention sort of will fizzle out or will actually turn negative, become resentment, become a source of anger, a source of pain, if we are not putting any attention on it. So once I've identified my intention, then I'm putting my attention on it, visualizing myself, imagining myself learning the ballet steps, acting on it, finding a person who's willing to teach me. All of those things are putting my attention on it. And then, if I were to go in and enroll and start training for that gymnast program, it's going to be very powerful. And many decades ago, the USSR team understood really well how this works, is that how powerful the mind is. What they did is they used to have this program called mental rehearsal, where part of the training of gymnasts was not done on the gymnast floor, but in the minds of the gymnasts. So they would lead them through visualization, where they are actually imagining themselves executing the moves that they are learning. So part of it was physical practice, part of it was mental practice. And what they found is that the time spent mentally rehearsing something was not wasted. In fact, it was very powerful because, as far as the mind is concerned, there is no difference between what is imagined and what is done physically. It's going to do both. It's going to create whatever chemicals are needed, whatever nerve impulses are needed, as though you are physically doing it. There's no difference. So, by imagining it, by spending time mentally rehearsing something, we are preparing our body as much as we are physically doing something. So, this intention of learning something, in this case, the gymnast performance or a exercise, that is the intention. The attention is the mental attention I'm giving it. Once I'm able to do that, and then I move to the physical action, that physical action will be much more easier, will be much more effortless. And this is true not just for gymnastics, it's true for every area of your life. So the next project that you want to work on, the next action that you want to take, step back a bit and look at the intention. Why do you want to do this? What is my intention there? Clarify it, and then put your mental and emotional attention on it, either through a vision board or through some kind of affirmation or through mentally visualizing that process. Do this enough number of times and then move on to the physical action. It will be much more easier for us. So that is the eighth topic, clarifying and looking at the power of intention and attention on our action that we are taking. Next week will be the last week where we are looking at the last four needs that make up part of our spiritual self care. So do stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining me. Bye bye. Do subscribe and hit the bell button for more weekly content on self care. And if you want even more actionable content on self care, do join me in the Facebook group for weekly lives, discussions, and more tips.